Welcome to the INT Here, the podcast, the official and only podcast of Dumpstat Adventures. I am one of the hosts, Steven.
I am the other host, Chris.
We are starting up a podcast for Dumpstat Adventures. Dumpstat Adventures is a blog where Chris and I talk about all the different things on our minds, which anything from GM advice to the player's perspective of D&D and tabletop role-playing games, and then also we do the occasional deep dive where we look into the past editions of like the Wish Spell, Fireball. I think right now Chris is currently writing a thesis on the Barbarian and its many iterations throughout.
Barbarians suck.
Well, I can tell that won't be biased at all. I look forward to editing that article. Every other line will just be Barbarians suck. Barbarians suck. Why are they so overpowered?
They're so overpowered, but we digress. Yes, you can find that at dumpstatadventures.com. The last two deep dives were the Fireball, and we just released the Wish Spell, which
kind of dates us.
Yeah, well, dates me. We're trying to go through and find some of the more iconic things from D&D that have, morphed and just changed over the years. So I'm the old guy. So I started off playing AD&D, and Steven has come to the game a little later in life and knows 5e. It's an interesting look at some different things. I mean, the Wish Spell, for example, holy crap. As we've done this, we've noticed that Gaiax just doesn't like players that much.
I understand that.
Yeah,
As a DM, I understand not liking players. Y'all do some stupid shit.
We do all the time. But the GM advice is interesting. Steven gives some, not only just advice for players, but some concepts that you can use, hopefully in your game, that might make it a little
My advice
easier.
is not for players. My advice is for the GM.
Yeah, sorry. Players, it's mostly bitching about GMs. No, it's a standard look. It's a lot of the things that you go online and look at now, like different types of players. And you have the metagamer and the noob and those kind.
And the problem with all those is that it seems to be more like GMs are the ones that are talking about these different type of players. It's rarely the player's perspective. And
right.
So what Chris is bringing is, as a player, how does he see things on his side of the table? Whereas, I get to sit behind my beautiful DM screen on my big throne and look down my nose at everyone. Chris is kind of in there with the rest of the peasants.
Yes.
Reporting on them and snitching on them.
Great arbiter.
Great arbiter in the sky.
Great arbiter in the sky. As you can tell, Steven likes power. So you can also find us at Twitter at, come on, Steven, help me out here.
_dump.
Excellent. Go on there and, we're usually, well, let me rephrase that. I'm usually the one posting stuff. Steven says, "Are you really bored? What are you doing?" So,
yes. If you send anything to us, if you add us at all, Chris, I'm sure, will immediately like it and then start following you.
Probably.
He's like a teenage girl.
I'm desperate for friends that I'll never meet in the iteration of people on the internet.
I don't need friends. I just need your constant approval. That's why I'm doing this.
Fantastic. So that's us. A relatively new site, and obviously this is our first podcast, but we're trying to hit it in a lot of different angles. We are also getting ready to put out one shot with the potential of being a trilogy.
Correct. Well, as the same day that the podcast goes out, the adventure will also be released on DM's Guild for free.
Mm-hmm.
Hope you guys check it out. It's called Druid in the Sewers. You can find a link to it on our website, dumpstatadventures.com, or just go to DM's Guild, and it should be there, unless things go awry and it takes a couple of days to process.
Right. So keep an eye out for that.
Also, there is a podcast episode titled Druid in the Sewers that will go over kind of our look at the adventure, give you a little bit more information about our design thoughts and ideas. Nothing too nitty-gritty like the mechanics of things, but it does touch on a couple of things that we found interesting and wanted to share with you to give you a little bit more ideas as to how to properly run it. If you're a player, it might not be too interesting. We are going to talk about a little bit about GMing and kind of the scary side of it. Like, for me, as a player, I only started D&D about 2 years ago. I was a player for probably a total of 8-9 months.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had a bit of a hiatus in there, and then I went as straight to DMing. I really enjoy
Power.
not necessarily power. I more or less really like knowing what's going on. Players, you kind of have to wait your turn as the arbiter kind of goes around the room trying to see what are people doing. And I kind of like, it's always my turn if I am the GM. Everyone's looking to me. I'm getting constant approval to feed my fragile ego. I really enjoy doing it. And I sometimes I wonder if I have a different idea as for enjoyment. As I read all these blogs where players are like, "Oh, I could never DM. It's too much work," or "It's too much pressure on you." It's like, I don't really have that much pressure on me. I just kind of sit there. And my style is very much kind of improv and off the cuff type things. I don't prep too much. I have a couple of bullet points as to what will happen with these type things, but I really let the players work their way through the adventure. I don't have anything like set in stone that needs to happen and stuff. And so I have a very prep light mentality towards it. And maybe that's what kind of scares off players, is they think they have to prep so much stuff. And now, Chris, you're currently a player in 5e, but
Correct.
You used to DM for 2e. How was being a player back then and a GM then versus being a player now?
Well, it was a lot of work because back then you had a lot of resources compared to now. Now they just put out these gigantic books that, take forever to read. You spend half your life flipping through to try and find the map for the room that you're on. Back then they had modules, and they were basically the original one-shots. They were anywhere from 15 to 20 pages. And they would release probably one every month. And you could probably run them. Some of them, the shorter ones were one-shots. Some of the longer ones you could probably run for 2 or 3 sessions. I still have all of mine. And I think I have pretty much all of them. So they were great. But if you wanted to actually custom design something, you had to hand draw your maps. Unless you were just making them up off the cuff, which never worked out well. It took you forever to find. You just roll out your sheet and get a erasable marker and draw on there. Back then, they didn't have that. It was a pain in the ass. It was different. It was a lot different than now. But let me ask you a question. In the current campaign that we're tying up here, we got some loose ends, and then we're gonna go fight the
big bad evil guy?
Boss,
evil girl,
I
suppose, in this context.
It is, as far as we know. First half we ran Tomb of Annihilation. No.
Wow.
We ran, oh wait,
I'm so glad I made such an impression
Tomb
on
of
you.
Annihilation is what we were running when I was doing AL.
Correct. Yeah, because we met not even a year ago,
right.
And I was doing an AL table, and we were going through Tomb of Annihilation. He was playing a warlock, had no idea what he was doing. It was very cute. But no, we started our campaign with Curse of Strahd because I really wanted my wife to get into D&D, and I kind of let her choose like what type of theme, and so we kind of went with gothic horror. And I had always heard good things about Curse of Strahd, so I was excited to run it for you guys. And so I got a bunch of random strangers, invited them to my house. Luckily, none of them turned out to be like serial killers or anything.
Well, I'm pretty sure that your wife vetted us all through social media and Facebook.
She did. I think she showed me a couple of posts seems a little concerning. It's it's fine.
They're fine.
That's hardly any blood.
So so there was so we ran through Stradlandia.
Correct. And I expanded it a little bit, so you guys were there a couple of levels longer, because I wanted you guys to hit the level 11 kind of milestone thing. Okay. And I felt with the way Strahd was written that he wasn't strong enough for level 11. That was more like level 9, level 10 characters to go up against Strahd. And 11 is a very big power increase for you guys.
Yes. We ran that, and then we transitioned into you running your ideas. Which do you like better, and what are some of the pluses and minuses of running something that is published and running something that you get to create?
For that, I would definitely say I really enjoyed running the hardcover as a new GM. And I encourage anyone that's thinking of becoming a GM to run one of those, like Lost Mines of Phandelver, the original kind. I guess it's like their start. It is their starter set. It's always a nice place to kind of start out. You kind of have to be weary of the goblins starting out, as they all have a surprise round, and there's 4 of them. And if they crit on level 1 characters, everyone's dead. I have heard some horror stories where there was a TPK on that first encounter.
People like, you're the worst GM ever. I'm gonna play with you again.
Like, D&D's a lot harder than I thought it'd be. I really enjoyed the hardcover for that purpose, and for just starting out being a GM, you should definitely check out some of those hardcovers. Like, I've run Waterdeep Dragon Heist. I don't recommend that one. Currently running Dungeon the Mad Mage. It's enjoyable, but unless your party is big on dungeon diving, it's might want to skip it. Though it does get you to level 20, which is the first hardcover to do so.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so you start at level 5, you go to level 20, and so it's their first hardcover for 5e that will take you to those high-powered levels. It's the first one that'll take you, I think, past level 12.
Oh, okay.
The way it's written, and so you can always pick that one up after you go through one of the original hardcovers. But I've also done Curse of Strahd, like we said. I've done Tomb of Annihilation. Tomb of Annihilation is pretty fun, though the end of it is a small dungeon dive that is more of like, haha, you died type things, which I might have said 3 or 4 times. I did get 3 TPKs in Tomb of Annihilation, so it's a very dangerous place for people to go through.
Yeah, the name of it doesn't give that away at all.
I never got that. Yeah. Oh, how about that?
Okay, as a new GM, then the books aren't short.
No, they're not short.
Did you find that?
Well, I found that to be very interesting. There's a lot of information in there, but a lot of it's incomplete. And so when I was first starting out, I was like, I feel like they forgot to put stuff in there. And then I realized, as I read more through it, like, they did it on purpose to allow you to have a little bit of fun with it, to allow you to put your own spin on it. You're not just like, and the players walk into this room, and this happen. It's more of, all right, so you guys are walking in this room, awesome. So this is going to happen, followed by this, and you have a lot of freedom there. And I really liked Curse of Strahd because of that gothic horror. Though you do have to be a little careful that you don't go too dark every single session, or else it becomes a drag, and people don't want to stay in Strahd. And we completed Strahd in 3 months, but that was meeting twice a week for 4 to 5 hours, right, Tuesday and Friday. And so that was probably a regular group that meets once a week. It'd be more like 6 to 7 months that would take them to complete through it.
I didn't realize we did Strahd in 3 months.
Yeah, we ran through that really quick.
Yeah, well, I guess meeting twice a week.
Oh yeah, meeting twice a week really helped you guys get through that.
It's great when you find a group. Excuse me.
I don't recommend doing 2 sessions every week with the same group. I especially don't recommend doing 3 sessions every week with 2 different groups.
Yeah,
that's what I was doing.
It's always good to find a group of people that have no lives, so that you can just play as much as you want. All right, so you get through Curse of Strahd, and we move on to you getting to create.
Yeah, I really enjoyed homebrewing the adventure. I wasn't sure what to do, and so I was planning way too much. For me, I was creating way too much information, and I was spending way too much time doing that. I was not enjoying coming up with conversations you guys may or may not have. I wasn't enjoying coming up with events that you may or may not see in the city.
And did you find that frustrating as a GM?
It wasn't frustrating per se. I just found it felt more like homework than it was a game. And part of being the GM is that my fun is derived from not just playing the game, but with coming up with ideas for the game.
Okay.
But this was becoming more homework and stuff. And so I decided after they killed Strahd that basically Barovia kind of crumbles away into the Shadowfell, and the heroes, for lack of a better word, are transported into Sigil, the city of doors. Because I really wanted this to be kind of a heavy exploration through the plains type thing. And so they arrived in Sigil. They get to Hestevar, which is the demi-plane for Ioun, Arathis, and then some other god.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just like this huge place, chock full of wealth and majesty, and you guys meet this one planescape captain, Captain Jadok, who's a Githyanki, who needs your help. You guys get to meet an astral dreadnought, which you guys escape with your lives. And then,
barely.
After all this craziness, you guys arrive back onto the material plane, and we went to a homebrew world. And so from Sigil to the Astral Dreadnought, I was planning way too much stuff. Okay. I was coming up with all these ideas that never happened or had like a 1% chance of happening just in case. I need to be prepared.
Right.
Strahd had all this information for me to work with. I need to have that same information for the home campaign. No, I really didn't. Once we got into the material plane, after about 4 or 5 sessions, I started planning less, and I started leaning more on improv and things like that. And I would say that's probably the hardest thing about starting out as a GM is figuring out how good are you at improv? How much can you improv? And those that might struggle with improv, and I've heard Matt Mercer, not to compare myself to him, say, like, improv is the single greatest thing that has improved his GMing abilities. So if there are improv classes for you and you have the disposable income, I'd highly recommend doing improv classes. I haven't done them personally because I'm a cheapskate and I don't like spending that type of money, and I don't like other people interacting with people that much. I've been really focusing on how to be better at improving. I've been reading articles about it, and so I think being able to work off the cuff and work with other players' ideas quickly and getting through ideas extremely fast is very important for new GMs to start learning how to do. Of course, you're not going to be perfect. No. You're not going to be the next Matt Mercer on, like, after you read an article on improv.
Worrying about being intimidated as being a GM and having all these things, do you worry about players, whether they're not having fun or if they're bored? I mean, how does that play into being a GM? And that would seem very intimidating to me now, because the group you're running right now, we're a difficult group.
You're the only difficult part.
Yeah. Well, we have 5 distinct personalities that play almost 5 distinct different styles. We have someone that metagames, and that's great. That works for him. We have someone
I'm just going to go off on a limb here and say metagame is not the deadly sin that people think it is.
Not at all. It slows down the game a little bit, but I like it because there's shit that I never knew you could do. And I'm like, holy crap, I should remember that because I might play that character next time, and I didn't know you could do that. And plus, that's the person that helps you out, that gives you the nudge, being like, you forgot to do this. I'm like, oh yeah, thanks. It's not a bash. It's just a title of what the person's doing. We have wait, you're the rule lawyer.
I come up with my own rules.
We have someone that's come back after a long hiatus and is stuck in a lot of the old rules. That's me. We have 2 people that are new. One person that is brand new. I mean, this is his first major campaign. Another person's playing for a little while. And we have a person that, for right or wrong, is the person that knows all the answers, even if they don't. And that's difficult. You're trying to coach through some people that don't know the rules. You're trying to accommodate someone that does know all the rules and wants to follow them. And you're having to not walk across the table and hit somebody because they're telling you how to DM. And that's intimidating to me. I mean, that is, but you balance it. So did you find that hard? Did that make you not want to GM?
I realized I was only ever going to be able to play AL tables, probably, unless I decided to GM. And so I have a very big vested interest in ensuring that the group is cohesive and stays together, even if the table is a bit 5 big points of personality everywhere. And so, sometimes there's clashing, but I think the major thing is GMs and players need to learn how to better communicate, as in like a relationship with a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a wife or a husband. Like, you need to be able to have communication between people. If there isn't that communication, then things are going to start falling apart. People's feelings are going to get hurt when they misunderstand something, and people that are hurting feelings may not realize that they're doing that because the other person is just hiding it behind a mask. And so I talk to players when I think something might be going on. I make sure people are doing okay. I check in with other people. I ask people for feedback on what I'm doing because I'm a new GM. I don't know how certain things that I'm doing might be affecting the table. Like, I don't know if having me doing like silly things in the world is like affecting people and their enjoyment of the campaign, or
I enjoy it.
if I just need to be like dead serious all the time. I adjust as needed based off of what's going on with the table, and the only way I know what's going on with the table is when I communicate with the players. And I hope that the players are also communicating with me and being truthful with each other. Like, hey, I know that your character is this very like loud, obnoxious type person. If you could just dial it back maybe a notch or two, that would be better for my enjoyment. And I hope like, the players are talking to each other about that and communicating what they need to enjoy things. Now, of course, that doesn't mean like, oh, this person, you know, when he talks, he gets a little loud sometimes in it. I just don't like that. Like, there are certain things where there are hills that you can die on, and then there are hills that you should just, you know, give up on. You know, no sense in making mountains of molehills.
No, I think one of the things that has worked out really well is you have fostered a sense of community at the table. I mean, we were 5 strangers for the most part. I mean, you knew pretty much everyone, but some of us didn't know the other people at all. And I think people will find it intimidating to be a CEO at a table and having to bring people together. You're part therapist, which is very intimidating to people to have to worry about their emotions. I mean,
and not to scare off like,
and not even about, and then learning all the damn rules.
Yeah, and I think what that seems a little intimidating to players that might think about being a GM is like, I have all this responsibility at the table. And right or wrong, it kind of falls on the GMs, which is unfortunate, as this should be a table effort to ensure that there's communication, that feelings aren't being hurt, that therapy, as it were, is being done to. Even if you are best friends with someone and like you spent 20 years with them, there can still be table manners that just drive you up the wall that they might do. You might think, oh, these guys are hilarious outside the table. But at the table, they're so annoying. And it's all about communication. And so, as a player, you shouldn't be worried about taking on the role of GMing, that you're going to have to be the therapist, or that you're going to have to make sure everyone's communicating and things like that. As your table should have that on the players themselves as well. Everyone should be responsible for that there is clear communication at the table. Everyone should be responsible that they are voicing anything that might be driving them crazy about someone else. And when you hear those critiques, you should not be taking them personally.
Right.
You know, we're all different, which I've heard is for the better. And so we as GMs, unfortunately, get a lot of that kind of pressure thrown on us because we end up kind of being the arbiter of what's going on at the table. We are almost seen as in charge of the table.
Right.
And whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. Players should have just as much say as the GM does about what type of games are going on.
Really? At your table? That's not how it works.
Okay, this is advice for other people, not for my table. I can't trust you people.
So, I mean, but I know you understand how that can be intimidating to somebody, but you have to bring a certain level of confidence to the role to be able to not only deliver your message in the adventure in and of itself, but fostering the players to work with each other. And to your point, I get it. It's a group responsibility. You're not, well, you think you're God, but you're not God at the table. You're the Supreme Arbiter.
Supreme Arbiter Overlord. I think is the correct title.
It is. And I think what worked well for you, and I think what you're trying to explain, at least how I'm interpreting it, is you start off and you have 5 individuals at a table and you kind of steer them in the right direction, and then you kind of let them do it themselves. Yeah. You know, the players are responsible for policing themselves. Supreme Arbiter Overlord is responsible for trying to keep you on track, not only as a group at the table, but also in the adventure. Because as I say, a lot of times in our blog, players do stupid shit all the time. I love that saying because we do. We do the dumbest stuff all the time. All players do. You think you have the best idea in the world, and the look on a GM's face sometimes is like, are you fucking kidding me? There are people that I've seen at the table come out of their shells a lot more. And I honestly think that you run therapy sessions after the game. You have a lot of people that are asking questions about the game, and that can be very scary for a new GM too. When we break our sessions, some of us leave, some of us stay, and they start asking you questions. Well, why did this happen? Why did this happen? Why couldn't I do this? How does that work again? And they're looking at you like, I have all the answers. Do you? I mean, isn't that scary as hell?
Well, going on with that and taking that with like learning the rules and stuff, I don't know all the rules of D&D.
Oh, so you're just telling them, I don't fucking know, read the book.
Well, partly, but kind of as the scary thing about being a GM is you have the final say at the table. The players may dislike it, but they need to respect that as a GM, you're not trying to fuck them over. You are not putting them over a barrel on purpose. When I have to come up with rules on the spot, the first thing that pops into my head is player fun and is this breaking the game? I try to keep the game as non-breaky as possible because if we don't have rules, then we're not really playing a game. Okay. The games have rules. If they don't have rules, then it's not a game. I don't know what it is. It's free-form improv, I guess.
Right.
And so the rules are important to make sure that players understand what they can and cannot do, and that ensures that they have fun the entire time. If they try to do things they can't do, like, oh, I'd like to sprout wings and fly off this cliff, it's like,
yeah, you jump
you're
off the cliff
with no magical abilities. All right, go ahead and jump, see what happens. I'm just going to let you know, wings are not going to sprout. And if you still want to jump, that's great.
What is that?
You clearly had some great
D6?
mushrooms. Yeah, 20 D6 bludgeoning, and then the freezing water, 20 D6 cold. Yeah, that sounds right.
And I guess that's the difference between a person's personality that wants to GM versus playing. I like playing. Okay. I mean, I DM when I was...
I never liked playing that much.
See, I love playing. I DM'd all the time, and it was great. But I wanted to play, and it wasn't as much role playing then. You didn't do things outside of the battles. The role playing was trying to do crazy shit with your sword and jumping off a wall, and you got to act that stuff out. You know, we were kids. You're yelling and screaming, you're having a good time, but there wasn't. Okay, you're in a tavern and you're talking and you're planning on doing all this stuff. 5e allows you to immerse yourself almost into a character. And right or wrong, its Critical Role has had a huge impact in that. They see these people acting out their characters all the time. And that looks like a blast. It does. And that's what I want to do. I watched it and I'm just like, this is so much fun. I can't do any of the voices, and I don't have the acting chops that some of these guys have, but I don't give a shit. It's like doing karaoke. You don't care how bad you sing when you get up there. You just have a good time.
To be fair, it's not necessarily acting what they're doing. They're doing improv.
Right.
Improv and acting are completely different things. Acting is more of going off of a script. None of them have scripts.
No.
What they're all doing is improv, and anyone can, eventually get good at improving.
True. That, to me, is fun now, and... even that can be intimidating for people. Having to role play your character correctly, and it's nice. It's nice to play with a group of people and see people start coming out of their shells and start developing their characters and start having fun with it.
Beginning of any campaign with new players, a new table, like people are going to be in their shells. They don't want to be the first one to have people think they're being silly.
Right.
And kind of as the GM, it's my
responsibility.
You say it's my table, that type of stuff. It does kind of become my responsibility. Mm-hmm. I have to be the first one that's willing to be silly. I will be silly the first one, and then people start breaking out of their shells. Once they see the GM is kind of taking the lead and doing the voices or describing off the wall type things, they'll start getting into the groove and start being silly as well. And they'll start breaking out their shells. And unfortunately, GMs kind of feel like that they're responsible for the enjoyment of the table. That responsibility is on everyone.
A player's responsible for their own fun. They really are. That being said, they also have to be responsible for making sure that everybody's having a fun time. It doesn't just land on the GM.
And that's important to know as a new GM,
Mm-hmm.
that everyone's fun is not your responsibility.
Right.
That is on everyone else to have fun. Like, if something is not being fun for the player, they need to talk to you afterwards and be like, hey, there was this one situation, I really didn't like it. If, maybe we could just avoid doing that in the future. And that could be anything from, like, you describing, like...
slaughtering puppies.
I mean, that's good fun for the whole family. But, like, if you're, like, you're describing a scene, it's like the spiders, like, jumping out of, like, the cupboards, and like, they have, like, an intense arachnophobia. Like, that's something you need to be mindful of.
Right.
I know these people really don't like spiders. I'll just avoid talking about spiders. It's not that big of a deal. If you are being such a hard ass, it's like, it's just spiders, get over yourself. Like, you're being a dick. And you need to have a moment of self-reflection and be like, if they don't like something, that's fine. That's not something against you. That's just them. And you need to adjust accordingly, or else you're not going to have that fun at the table. And if you're not having fun at the table, what the fuck are we doing for 4 to 5 hours a week? And then all that time you took prepping.
No, I'm just going to your house because you make great food. I guess one of the last questions I want to ask is what, and this can be very scary for people, what do you do when there is a player that's just not fitting in at the table? And I equate it with, if you have any responsibility or any people that you work with that report to you and they're not doing a good job, you may have to let them go. And firing someone in a workplace is very scary for people. People don't want to do that. Most people I know avoid that at all costs.
Yeah, I mean, everyone. Well,
not me.
Most people try to avoid confrontation.
Back in the day when I was working in the corporate world, everybody called me to fire people because I just didn't give a shit. You know what? You're not doing your job. Get out. You're at a table and you're the GM and you know this person isn't a fit. All the other players are coming up and being like, why is this guy such an asshole? Or can you have him stop? And it's going on and on and on. You realize, you know what? I need to do something about this. And unfortunately, the thing to do is tell him this isn't the table for him. That's scary as shit.
And you guys can check the footnotes to the show. Show notes.
We have footnotes?
I'm going to add show notes.
Oh, sweet.
There is a beautiful chart that I don't even know who did it, but it's shared between everyone. You talk to the person. If that doesn't work, then you talk to them again. If that's like, so long as you're communicating with them and they are trying to change, keep them on. Mm-hmm. But if you keep talking with them and other people are talking to them and they're not changing, just kick them out. You're not having fun. Why would you have yourself do something that's unfun for you for 5 hours every week? That's pretty much what happens when you have someone at the table that is ruining everyone else's enjoyment. And
why are you looking at me like that? It's something you need to tell me.
This is an intervention, Chris.
Okay, great.
We wanted to talk to you about you. It's not you, it's you. If everyone at the table is not having fun because of this one person, it might suck to kick them out because they're your friend. But at the end of the day, table etiquette, like if they're not respecting the table, then you kind of have to kick them out. You can't just be having bad session after bad session, because then you're just going to give up on the will to even prep properly for the game, or to even play the game, or go to another table. Like, you'll just be like, you've had a bad experience, and that's all you can think about when you think of role-playing games. Yeah, that's not fair to you or to the rest of the party for someone to be ruining everyone else's fun.
Right.
And if they are your friend, it can suck kicking them out, but you got to do what you got to do. You can't just be miserable every week for 5 hours. That's no fun.
No, and I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. It's just, I think that might be one of the hardest things.
Yeah, it's definitely hard, especially if someone's your friend, to like look at them and be like, hey, this isn't working out.
Right.
Please don't come back to the table.
I'm breaking up with you.
Yeah, and maybe that's the wake-up call they need. Like, oh, I'm not being allowed back to the table, maybe I have been wrong.
Right.
And maybe, give them a couple of weeks to cool off. And then if they keep promising to change, you can give them another chance.
Mm-hmm.
And if they still mess up after that chance, unfortunately, the table and your personalities just aren't working.
Right.
And
because it's better to lose one person than your entire table.
Yeah. You should find a different table that meshes better with your style. And there's all sorts of like online resources like Roll20 and things like that. They can find other groups.
Right.
It's not the end of their D&D career.
No.
There. If they really want to play, then they can find other places to play. It's just you have to watch out for your table.
Right.
Because if there's someone there destroying the group dynamic, that is destroying people's fun, then you kind of have to cut that off.
Mm-hmm. I agree wholeheartedly. Again, that's scary.
Yeah, and that's not just on the GM to kick them out. That's also on the players. The players should also, someone needs to step up, and unfortunately, that someone is typically the GM.
Exactly. I mean,
And
you're
that
the
can be
one.
scary for new players. It's
You're
like,
the one that everyone comes to bitch to.
why do I have all this responsibility?
Right.
I just wanted to come up with some ideas to run my friends through, and
Right.
now there's this one dude that's just ruining everyone else's fun. Why is this on me?
GMing, if that's something you are interested in, what you're saying is do it.
Yeah, do
Right.
it.
Don't be scared. Just
You will always mess up. I mess up. Like, I have bad days where I'm just like, I don't fucking know what you guys are doing. You know what? Boulder, aneurysm.
Aneurysm.
Something happens.
Any
I
player
don't know.
can have an aneurysm at any time.
Yeah, and the GM's currently having one, watching you guys mess about. You're always going to mess up. Even Mercer, the great and powerful Mercer,
Oh,
will have
Jesus.
bad days.
Yeah.
And have sessions that are lackluster or things like that. But so long as the fun happens majority of the time, you're good to go. Like,
yeah.
If your players are having fun, then you should be having fun too. Your fun, though, is from a variety of places. My fun is coming up with ideas and then tossing it at the players, seeing what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Another GM's fun could be like meticulously planning things out.
Right.
And so long as they have a table that works with their style, that's great. Another GM's fun might not even have anything to do with prepping. It could just be doing funny voices and having a variety of different voices that he gets to employ to interact with the party.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing. I guess
Find what makes it fun for you,
mm-hmm.
and then, run with that. And if your table doesn't quite mesh with that, either if this is a hill you're willing to die on, come up with a new table. If this is something that you can be a little flexible on, start working towards that to maximize your fun.
And there's lots of resources out there for a new GM.
Yes, like my website.
Yes, exactly. Wait.
I didn't tell you?
Yeah.
You're getting kicked off.
Mutiny. That'd be more of a hostile takeover.
Dumbstatadventures.com, just so you guys know.
Run by Steven. So that's one of the things now. I don't want to DM. I love being a player right now. Maybe down the road somewhere, but going into 5e, I was like, there's too much. I can't come up with anything, and I don't like reading through a book. And then as I started doing more research, there are so many references out there to help you through. Just go on DM's Guild and get a couple one-shots and read through and be like, oh, and just follow some simple things to start, and don't be freaked out of all the things you have to do. So that made it a little easier to think like, oh, one day maybe I will be a GM. But right now I'm having way too much fun being a player.
Yeah, this is a topic for another time, but as a player, I always felt like I needed to do more. And if you ever have like that sensation as a player, like I need to do more, you should definitely become a GM. It's better over on this side. We have cookies.
You're doing everything.
Yeah. People are typically very, very thankful for when you take on the role of GM. And also, you don't have to be the full-time GM. If you're on a steady table, you can talk to your GM and be like, hey, I'd really like to give this a shot. Can I run a one-time game? Can I run a multi-session game? We'll start at level 3 and we'll just attack this kobold cave and we'll see where it goes. And
Stop with the kobolds.
The kobolds are the great ever.
That's going to be a deep dive, right?
I can't wait.
Yeah, it's a personality thing, and being a player has its own challenges. I just don't think I'd be ready to take on the challenges of being a GM yet, but I am not scared to do it. I'm enjoying myself now.
There's nothing scary about GMing. When I first started, I was more nervous about ensuring people had fun, but if people aren't having fun, I expect that they will come talk to me. That is what I have told the table time and time again. I am there to listen to them and listen if they aren't having fun.
And how many people come to bitch to you about me? No. Yeah. Oh, no. And I wouldn't be surprised if there were some people bitching about me in the beginning, because I had no fucking clue what I was doing, and I still stumble through it. And
just one quick thing about rules. You don't need to learn them all. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
There's a poorly managed index page at the back of the DMG and the PHB. You can look it up on the spot or come up with your own. No one's going to expect you to know all the rules. And if they do, they're being a bit ridiculous. Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins and Mike Merles, they're constantly saying, like, they don't even know all the rules, and they wrote the damn thing.
Right.
And they have, Mike Merles will constantly say, like, always, like, go back. We always look at what the rules actually are, because you can always misremember it. You can remember it from other games, past editions, random things that pop into your mind. That's all.
All right. No, that makes sense. That was a good talk. I appreciate the answering of all the crazy questions I had, because a lot of them make sense, and I don't think anybody should be scared.
Sometimes you gotta grab life by the balls, and sometimes you have to grab the game by the balls and squeeze tight and hope for the best.
Yeah. Like we said in the beginning, if you don't like listening to our voices, well, then you can go to our blog at dumpstatadventures.com.
Then you can read our voices.
Yeah, exactly. Mine sounds totally different. And we will be doing this, what'd you say, bi-weekly?
Bi-weekly. Every other week, we hope to put out a podcast where we go over questions about tabletop role-playing games,
and
go over feedback, follow up, that type of stuff. If you have any comments, please leave them down there. We just released at the time of this releasing, we should have our first adventure, Druid in the Sewers, out on DM's Guild for free. You can follow us on Twitter at stat_dump. Our blog is dumpstatadventures.com. I am Steven.
I am Chris.
And we hope you guys have a great week.